Okay, we are calling to order the regular meeting of the Camarillo Planning Commission. This day, Tuesday, August the 16th, 2022. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. If Secretary would call roll.
Commissioner Talmadge. Here. Commissioner Murphy.
Here.
Commissioner Vandermeulen.
Here.
Commissioner Edsel.
Here.
And Chairman Espinoza.
Here. All present. And if Vice Chair Vandermeulen would lead us in the pledge.
If everybody would please stand to the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. The first thing up on the agenda is the consent. If there are no questions, changes, concerns, if I can get a motion to approve our consent, which is the minutes.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Edsel, seconded by Commissioner Talmadge to approve the consent. All please vote.
Apologize.
Okay, we're good. So moving on, we are now opening public comment for anything that's not on tonight's agenda. So this is anyone who's attending the meeting tonight that has anything they want to address to the Planning Commission that's not on the agenda and that we would not be able to take action on, but you're welcome to come up and speak. Do we have any cards for this? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that public comment period and move on to public hearings. The first item for public hearings will be item B, annexation A114 and change of zone. 333, Jensen Design and Survey Incorporated, resolution recommending approval to the City Council of A114 and change of zone 333. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Chairman Espinoza, our newly promoted planning manager, Jackie Lee, will make the presentation.
Congratulations, Jackie.
Thank you, Chairman Espinoza, Vice Chair Vandermeulen, members of the Planning Commission. Annexation 114 and change of zone 333 are applications submitted by Jensen Design and Survey to annex approximately 1,943 square feet of land and pre-zone the property to rural exclusive 1 acre minimum lot size. With the annexation, a reorganization of districts will include annexation to the Camarillo Sanitary District and detachment from Ventura County Resource Conservation District, Gold Coast Transit District, and Ventura County Service Area Number 32. The project site's located north of Las Posas Road and also north of Crestview Avenue. It is just east of Valley Vista Drive at 35 Encino Avenue. The site is adjacent to, but just outside the city limits. And on this map, the red line denotes the city boundary line. So generally, everything that's north of that is in the county, except for this little sliver in here. And then everything south of that is in the city. The property is within the city's sphere of influence and the Camarillo urban restriction boundary, and is also currently designated in the city's general plan as rural density residential, 2.5 acres, or 2.5 dwelling units per acre maximum. And on the zoning map, the property is actually in the county zoned as rural exclusive 5 acre minimum lot size. And to the west of the project site, the zoning in the city is rural exclusive 1 acre minimum lot size. And so they are proposing to have that pre-zone as RE 1 acre, which would match the city zoning. And this is a close-up view of the property. And the applicant is proposing to annex a 5-foot strip of land, which is approximately 389 feet in length north of Encino Avenue. And according to the applicant, the annexation is being pursued in order to widen an existing 26-foot wide dirt driveway by 5 feet. That additional 5 feet is proposed to be picked up from the 5.6 acre property just to the east, which is in the county, right here. The widening of the driveway is necessary for the development of a 5.92 acre property in the county, which is up here. If the annexation is approved, the applicant will pursue with the county a lot line adjustment of the short segment of the driveway that is just north of the annexation area, which is just this little piece right here. And then also following the annexation, a lot line adjustment will be recorded that shifts the existing lot line of the driveway, which is right here, to include the annexation. So it'll just move 5 feet over to the east. The project site is proposed to be pre-zoned to the city's rural exclusive residential 1 acre minimum lot size, which will become the property's zoning should the annexation be approved and recorded. Under City Council Policy 7.03, annexations, it is the policy of the city to pursue the annexation of properties adjacent to the city whenever it is reasonably feasible to do so. So in accordance with the policy, staff mailed a letter to property owners of 31 different parcels in the county asking if they wanted to be included in the annexation. After mailing that, there were no property owners that pursued being included in this annexation. The proposed annexation and pre-zoning is in keeping with the guidelines for orderly development as adopted by the Ventura Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO for short, and the city, as the annexation area is adjacent to the city limits. It is within the city's sphere of influence and the curb, and will not result in creating an unincorporated island. The proposed zoning to RE 1 acre is consistent with the current general plan designation of rural density residential. The project was reviewed in accordance with CEQA and state CEQA guidelines, as well as the city's environmental guidelines, and was determined to be categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA under Class 20, annexations of existing facilities and lots for exempt facilities. CEQA guidelines, section 15319. Therefore, no additional environmental review is necessary. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending approval of annexation 114 and change of zone 333 to the City Council. And that concludes staff's report.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. We'll start by opening up to commissioners for questions of staff.
Good
Commissioner
evening.
Thomas.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions about, first off the maps. I'm a little confused of which that seems to me to differ a little bit from the exhibit we have in the staff report. It's unclear to me where this strip of land, does it currently lie in the county or in the city?
The little yellow piece is in the county. So
Okay.
this map is the same one that was in your staff report. So the piece in yellow is in the county that is being proposed to be annexed into the city.
Okay. So what confuses me is there are two lots off of Crestview Drive that's actually Encino Lane, I guess. And the yellow stripe goes down parallel to one side of that property. Is that in the city or in the county? And are we talking about of what borders the green, or where there's actually a parcel with a house on it?
There is a parcel that pretty much constitutes a driveway from here to Encino, and they're requesting to widen that driveway by picking up 5 additional feet to the east.
Okay. So the purpose of this is to provide access to that, what appears to be a barren site up there. Now, is that site in the county or in the city?
It's in the county.
It's in the county, okay. So that leads me to believe that the yellow stripe is in the county, and the edge, the left edge of that line is in the city or adjacent, it's county land. And so what we're doing is we're reviewing a transfer of that property to the city, and of course, eliminating the various districts that are overlay that from the county, and then coming in with the sanitation district for the city. Okay, all right. Do we have anything that indicates the county has reviewed this and approved it?
Yes, so I've been working with both LAFCO and the county, and they have no objections to this.
Okay, but do we have anything in writing?
I do have a letter from the county. They had reviewed a request for the lot line adjustment, with the caveat that this has to be annexed. So they did approve that lot line adjustment with pretty much the condition that the city approves the annexation. So they are on board with that. And I have both the applicant and the city have both email correspondences with LAFCO explaining the proposed annexation. And LAFCO has provided an email that gave the specific reorganization of those districts, and they did not have any concerns.
Okay. All right, so there is an agreement with the county, and the county has approved the lot line adjustment already?
Yes.
I see, okay, all right. So what we're really doing is providing better access to that vacant lot to the north of, well, what's called Encino Avenue, but somebody lives there. Yeah, to that.
To this vacant lot, correct.
Okay, that's all I had for a question. Thank you.
Commissioner Murphy.
All right, well, again, thank you for the presentation, and congratulations on your promotion. That's wonderful. A couple of, really more just confirming my understanding on a couple items here. The property just to the north of the northerly terminus of this lot line adjustment, that will also be a lot line adjustment, but that's all within the county, is that correct? To get up to that northerly lot, there's a separate little piece there,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yes.
And that's all conducted separately with, and is that ongoing at this time, or what is the sequence there? Is that everything happens at the same time?
So they're waiting to get the annexation approved, and then once that gets approved, then they're going to just work with the county on getting this lot line adjustment for this small parcel through the
Got it.
county.
Okay, and then the second thing is just wanted to confirm that the property owner, the applicant, was aware that there were different options available to them. One would be possibly to secure a 5-foot roadway easement and thereby circumvent the LLA and the annexation and zone change. And they've weighed those options and have concluded that this is the best option for them. Is that correct?
That's correct. The staff had conversations with the applicant as to maybe exploring those different options. Procedurally, it would have been much quicker and easier, perhaps, going that route, but it was the applicant's decision to want to pursue this option. From what I was told, was that they didn't want to have encumber this with too many easements, with multiple easements, providing access to this property. And so by moving that lot line, annexing it, they would have the existing easement that goes over the driveway modified to just widen it so it would still be under one property owner, not two.
Got it. The final configuration this way involves one less property owner.
Correct.
All right. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Rizzo.
Tom asked the questions I had on mine, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Chair.
Couple things. Looking at the map that was in our packet and the map that's up here, the only difference is where you have that solid green lot north of whatever street it is going up. On our map, it's all developed. That's all. There's 2 houses and stuff built on that area. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that from what we're looking at here and what's there. So kind of a roundabout thinking of mine, if they really wanted to, what I see they kind of had to look at as possibilities, if they wanted that one road area expanded and all under one jurisdiction, they either had to move the city line or move the county line to get it all other. So you would be annexing either one side or the other side to get it there. So this seems to make probably the most sense to me from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing. Do they have, I don't know that I may have missed it if it's in the packet, and I apologize. What are there future plans for the project site to, I think it's the north or the back that they're trying to get to? Is that going to be up for subdivision, or is that still going to be agriculture, or since it's going to the residential zoning code eventually, possibly?
To this big property here on the.
Yeah.
This is in the county zoned RE 5 acre. That zoning wouldn't change.
Okay.
And the applicant has indicated, although they have not, they don't have any plans, that this property owner is considering building a house, a single-family house, although the city's not seeing any plans either.
And as it is, if there were plans at this point, they would go through the county.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other questions on that. I just needed some more clarification, was all I needed. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. So it's curious that they, at some point, the one green rectangular-shaped city jurisdiction there where the line is, they included the driveway that we were talking about at some point and annexed that and made that part of the city. The driveway itself that will serve that northern lot property in question. So who owns the driveway? Who will maintain the driveway going forward?
This driveway is owned by the property owner of this property, right here.
Okay, so that's driveway serves, is that their access to that property?
Yes, it serves this vacant lot, and it would also serve this vacant lot.
Okay, so the driveway is owned by that, okay, that's how that happened, okay. And so we're just talking about the project area is 1,900 plus square feet, 389 feet long, 5 foot wide on the east side of that driveway, adding an additional 5 feet to the driveway, basically. Is that right, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so there's no, as far as we know, there may be construction even going on now because that's all being handled through the county?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And as far as the home lots that you said there were 31 of them that you looked at or maybe notified, sent letters to see if there was a desire for annexation, additional annexation. I was looking at the council policy attached to our agenda packet regarding annexation and anything that's near our city boundaries and so forth, to try and encourage that when possible. It didn't seem like it really had a lot. I mean, the intent was there in terms of the policy, but it didn't really have a lot of direction as to how you maybe convince them to actually annex and what the procedure might be, you know, because as somebody who's in the county, if I'm approached by somebody from the city saying, hey, are you interested in annexing, I'd probably want to know, you know, what's my tax bill going to look like going forward, you know? What's the service going to be? How's that going to change? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Is it going to be cheaper or less expensive tax-wise? Is it going to be the same or more? So it seems like that policy ought to maybe incorporate something, or maybe it requires us meeting with LAFCO to maybe get some direction from them to add some section in that policy to give more clear direction as to how we might encourage people.
That's a good comment. It's been our past practice, and we did do it in this case also, that we prepared a, let's see, kind of like a data sheet, a 2-page data sheet that talks about what the difference would be, you know, if they were to remain in the county versus be annexed into the city, tax implications, any changes to trash service, and so we did provide that information in the letter that went to these property owners.
Okay. And then lastly, so we would making a recommendation to the council to approve this, and it still needs to go before the county supervisor's body for approval, and then to LAFCO. Is that
So
the process?
Yeah, the council would be, if you recommended to the council approval, then we would take a resolution to the council approving that the city initiate or submit an application for annexation to LAFCO.
Okay.
So the city is actually the applicant to LAFCO on the
Initiating that
annexation.
process. Okay.
And by the way, I just wanted to correct on the vicinity map that was attached to your report is incorrect. Thank you for pointing that out. The correct one is the one on page 4 of your agenda report, and then the one that was attached behind it does show that the yellow bar in the wrong location. It should have been shifted over slightly to the east. So that correction will be made.
Commissioner Itzel.
I just had a follow-up question on the 31 people that, did they decline or just they didn't respond? I mean, you sent them all notice.
Yes, we did get maybe 3 property owners that either called or emailed me, and they, you know, after kind of explaining to them or just providing them with more information, they did indicate that they no longer were interested.
But they didn't have to respond and decline. It's just if they didn't join, they...
Right, correct. We did provide contact information if they were interested, if they were interested to contact, but they didn't have to contact me if they were not.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Jackie, back to my lot question. So are you saying, because what I'm looking at, where the green lot is, I can see 2 yellow dividing lines to where it looks like it's possibly 3 lots above, just above Encino Avenue. The houses along Encino Avenue in Valley Vista, or whatever the street is. So that green, no, below that, and over to the left, there.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the one that I'm looking at, look up there, I can almost see 3 lots. So I'm looking at a picture of the 2 westerly lots being built already and a vacant area on the easterly lot. So do we know who the ownership is on the one vacant lot on this, or is this do these houses not exist here anymore?
There's 2 houses on these 2 lots,
Okay?
and this lot is vacant. And this property owner, I believe the last name is Lucchese, is the owner of the driveway parcel as well.
Okay. So it is not the same owner as the house in front of it to the west of it? It's the owner that's
I
applying
believe
for
he
the
also
driveway?
owns this property too.
Okay. All right, sorry. I was still confused, but I'm okay now. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and open up the public comment period for this item. And if the applicant would like to address the commission, and we do have speaker cards. Thank you. Does the applicant want to come forward?
Hi, my name is Nicole Garner. I work for Jensen Design and Survey, and we represent the applicant. I think that Jackie did a great job with the presentation, and I have nothing to add, but I'm here if you have questions.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? That's one of the speaker cards. Seeing none, we have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we also have Sol Stain.
Hello. I am one of the property owners noticed, and I'm going to read a letter, a copy of which Ms. Jackie Lee has. My wife Laura McAvoy and I are owner occupants of 40 Encino Avenue, Camarillo, California, which is directly across the street from the Edo property. To all concerned in the above projects, my wife Laura McAvoy and I fully support the requests of our 35 Encino Avenue neighbors, the Edo brothers, as stated in your notice to us, this one. Our family has been one of the first residences in the Las Posas estate for over 60 years and are familiar with the requirements of land development, and based upon our neighborly contacts with the Edo family and aware of their stewardship of the lands as a leading agricultural family in Ventura County, are confident that the requested developments will be beneficial to all involved in the surrounding properties. My wife's family, McAvoy Ventura, has built 3,000 or 4,000 homes in the county. My wife is fully conversant in what is happening. I wasn't able to get a packet which had the details that are on the screen. So subsequent to this, I would like to be able to get that full packet for the details for our future look. For your unofficial information, that vacant lot that's in the county at the north end of that driveway has been under full development for a single-family large home. And is not going to be any doubt about that being an improvement in the area. Does anyone else have any questions on my comments?
Any questions for the speaker? Commissioners? Okay, no, thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Schulze. That's all the speaker cards I have for this agenda item. And with that, we will close the public comment period for this item. Now I'll turn to commissioners and see if we have comments now on the items before any action. Commissioner Isel.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward and just widening the driveway, basically, so I'm going to support it.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Ramio? Or Vice Chair?
Well, I look at it as kind of the first step in a process, and I appreciate the fact that we've been given all the steps look like they're going to follow throughout, because then it's like I can kind of picture what's going to happen in the future because of this, because it's not a one-and-done deal here. So, but it has been approved by all the parties involved and looked at, so I can approve this as it goes, and I look forward to the further changes that go with it.
I also can approve the proposal to move forward with the annexation. I do want to see if any of my fellow commissioners might share my, I guess you could say, suggestion. Since you only had 3 responses out of 31, I still feel like there would be beneficial, at least as us as a body, to recommend to council to maybe consider possibility of adding to the council policy on annexation about whether there's something in their section that maybe needs to be added for cost-benefit review or something to that effect, or maybe meeting with LAFCO staff to see what makes the most sense. But not just, hey, it's our intent that we want to see when possible to add people, but can we describe some sort of process for doing that and getting there?
I'm sorry, I'm just concerned that this isn't on the agenda, and that maybe we should put this as a future agenda item.
Yeah, if we can do that. Okay. Yeah, that'd be good. So we will table that discussion and bring it forward in the future, so we don't have to actually act on this. But I appreciate the advice and comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
So with that, we will go ahead and ask for a reading of the resolution.
Resolution number PC 2022-11, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo recommending approval to the City Council of an annexation and pre-zoning of 1,942.95 square feet of land located at 35 Encino Avenue, further described as annexation 114, and change the zone 333.
I'll make a motion to waive further reading and vote for adoption.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for adoption. Please vote. Item passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to recuse myself because applicants are clients of our office, so I'm going to go in the
Okay,
other room then.
we'll
Thank
take
you.
a second, and Commissioner Edsel will be recusing himself for this agenda item, as noted. Okay, next item is item C, IPD Industrial Plan Development 406, Dawson Storage, to adopt a resolution. Recommended conditions of approval. Can we have a staff report for this item, please?
Yes, Chairman Espinoza. First, I'd kind of like to just kind of start off a little bit. This is a long project that's been in the works for before I even started with the city, and I've been with the city just shy of 7 years now. So it started with actually parceling off a piece of railroad property, and the railroad's not known to be, they're known to be, I'll just say, a little difficult, or they have a process, I'll just say that, a process to go through and parceling off the land. So the first step was to parcel off the land and make it developable so the developer can control it and kind of drive the process a little bit more. So that was a win to start off, and we worked with the developer very well on that, and that was, like I said, kind of a long process. The parcel itself is an infill parcel, very long and narrow and a challenging, piece of development. But, working with the applicant and staff and the architect, we feel that, we're very excited to bring this, to you for consideration. And to provide more detail on this project is our senior planner, Paul McLaren.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Mr. McLaren, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Espinoza, Vice Chairman Vandermeulen, Commissioners. So the project before you tonight is IPD 406, which is Dawson Storage. The Metairie LLC requests approval for the construction of a 3-story, 64,743 square foot self-storage facility that has tuck-under parking that's located at 91 South Dawson Drive. On the map on the left, you see the general plan land use, and the red outline in the center of that is the parcel in question. It is in an industrial land use per the general plan and surrounded by other industrial land uses per the general plan. Lewis Road is just to the west, and then St. Mary's is the green property also west of Lewis Road, and then the Glen Park Apartments is the reddish-brown property to the left of that. To the right, on the other side of the industrial, is the Callegas neighborhood, and that is a mix of low-medium density residential and single-family residential. And then the zoning is the map on the right, and again, the property is in the middle, and that is the service commercial zoning. And then again, we have a mix of RPD and single-family residential to the right and to the west, and then industrial to the south, and then the rural exclusive for the St. Mary's School, and high density, or I should say RPD 30U for the Glen Park Apartments. And then it's to the north, it's more additional service commercial, and to the south is more industrial. So the project is a 1.42 acre lot located just south of the 101 freeway. It's west of Dawson Drive and east of the railroad tracks. So you can see the railroad right-of-way here, and then Dawson Drive. And a little bit, the very tip of this long, narrow project actually tucks under the Lewis Road overpass. This is a view of the project as it currently exists looking southwest from Dawson Drive. It's currently being used to store some of the transit vehicles, buses, that sort of thing. And it's got some existing buildings that have been there for quite some time from back when it was railroad property. The project was reviewed in accordance with CEQA, the state CEQA guidelines, as well as the city's environmental guidelines, and it's been determined to be categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA under Class 32, which is urban infill development. This requires that the project be consistent with the general plan, the zoning, and the requirements of any specific plan overlays, in this case, the Dawson Drive Industrial Area Concepts and Design Guidelines. It has to be within the city limits in an urbanized area and surrounded by urban uses on a lot that's less than 5 acres. It has to have no value as habitat for endangered, rare, or threatened species. It results in no significant effect relating to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. In this case, a storage facility will have very few trip visits per day on average for most storage facilities. It's also going to be adequately served by all required utilities and public services, so therefore no additional review is necessary. Back in 2010, the city came up with the Dawson Drive Industrial Area Design Concepts. This was when the state had redevelopment agencies, and the intent was that the redevelopment agencies' funding would help to revitalize this area and help bring about the Dawson Drive Industrial Area concept. Unfortunately, 2 years later, in 2012, the state was having some financial difficulties, and the state dissolved the redevelopment agencies, and all that funding basically dissolved. In 2016, those Dawson Drive guidelines were updated. And then in 2017, we'd been working with the applicant originally from 2010 on a transit-related facility. And then in 2017, as David had mentioned, the railroad was finally able to help to create a tentative map, LD 536, which actually created the project lot separating the property from some railroad property that was excess. And the city continued to discuss a transit facility with the developer. So this is the tentative map on the bottom right. You can see where the parcel 2 is still railroad property, and parcel 1 is what was separated out from that railroad property to create the existing property. As part of the agreement for this map and the design, and in keeping with the design comments or the design guidelines of the Dawson area, the city also asked for a 4-foot dedication. The design concept actually would have required a 19-foot dedication in order to be able to bring into fruition the road cross-section that's shown in the design concepts. But that would have made this property only have a developable width of 84 feet, which really was not going to be conducive to being able to develop much of anything. So the city, working with the developer in an agreement, basically created a 15-foot easement at the front of the property that will help to achieve that design concept that's in the Dawson Drive industrial area while leaving that property to be used as the developer's setback area for the design and for the project. And so that will be a 15-foot landscaped easement on the developer's property that will be maintained by the developer. So when the final map actually recorded in 2019, this is the easement that was actually recorded. So you can see on the right here, there is the 4-foot dedication is shown as this thin white line. And then this is the actual easement area, and this easement was created kind of jagged like this because there are still existing buildings on the property. And the easement was went around those buildings in order to allow the developer to keep the buildings for the time being. But there was a condition of approval on the map that when the development occurs, those buildings will all go away, and this easement will be recorded as re-recorded as a 15-foot easement parallel to the property line so that it's consistent throughout the entire length of the property. On June 16th, 2020, the applicant submitted IPD 406, which is what we're talking about tonight, for a self-storage facility, which was a shift from a transit facility that had previously been discussed. We held development advisory conferences after working with the applicant for about 2 years. We held development advisory conferences on the 15th or 17th of May and the 15th of June. In that conference, we discussed the conditions of approval, and conditions 1, 3, 6, 10, and 76 all require that the applicant construct the public improvements along Dawson Drive, as well as install all the landscaping and maintain the landscaping in that 15-foot landscape easement. The applicant then met with staff to further discuss this aspect of the conditions on July 12th of 2022. And it was determined that the developer is going to be responsible for any modifications or improvements, including that landscaping in the public right and any improvements in the public right of way. So here's a site plan of the project. Dawson Drive is here at the bottom. There is an entrance into the site here, which is actually a two-way entrance, so you can exit and leave the site from this entrance. There is an exit from the site down this way, so this is only a one-way exit. The property itself has got a long, narrow building. It's got tuck-under parking. There is also additional parking along the property edge at the back, and that's where they've gone ahead and put the required loading zones. There is an office a rental office for the facility here. There is parking available for people who want to use that rental office to negotiate their rent on the space. And there is also a commercial element of about 16, almost 1,700 square feet that's along the front of the building that actually has a patio out in that landscape area, and that would be a retail commercial use that would go into that location. And there is adequate parking also to serve that use. Along here, the parking that's tucked under would be considered, it would be converted to be used for boat trailer storage, and RV storage. So that the applicant that way would be able to get additional funds or additional income off of being able to use that parking for vehicle storage, recreational vehicle storage. So with this size of a building, We went ahead and we calculated that self-storage requires parking at 1 parking space per 500 square feet, which would have required 79 parking stalls, and the commercial section would require, at 1,676 feet, would require 7 parking stalls, which would give a requirement of 86 stalls. But the property can really only fit 79 stalls, and so that's what's shown on the property. But since most of the parking spaces are actually going to be converted to recreational vehicle storage, it was deemed that an 8% reduction, as allowed by the city's code, by the director in the city code, would be appropriate for this use. So this would include an 8% reduction in required parking. The setbacks, again, this is using for the front yard setback, which is required at a minimum of 15 feet. It is going to be using that landscaping easement to achieve that front yard setback. So that is the applicant's property still. At the rear yard, there is a minimum rear yard setback of 20 feet, and they're providing 32 feet. That's in order to be able to provide additional parking, as well as a fire access lane behind the building. Then on the south end of the property, there's a 0-foot setback requirement, but there's a 200-foot setback that's being provided because the property, comes to a narrow point. And then on the north side of the property, there's also a 0 side yard setback, but they're providing 39 feet 2 inches as a setback on the north end of the property. So here's the project description. On the bottom here, you can see a little bit closer view of how the actual building will lay on the lot. Cut off the tip down here a little bit. So you can see the commercial spaces in here, the office spaces in here, all of this tuck under parking in here. The people who are going to be using this facility will be able to park here in order to be able to access the offices and the commercial. There is handicap parking provided and the ADA accessibility paths of travel. And then there also will be parking here for people who want to offload their personal belongings and take it into elevators here and here in order to be able to take it up to the 2nd and 3rd floor where the storage facilities are actually located. And then this view we're seeing here is the rendering. So the original picture I showed you was Dawson Drive looking southwest. This is the rendering of that same basically view. So this is what you will see instead of what was shown in the picture earlier on in the presentation. And then these are other renderings of other facades or other from different angles. The property or the top one is looking north along Dawson Drive. And so with this building being such a long, narrow lot, it's required to be really narrow, but really long. And if it was just kept as a 35-foot tall box, it would be very uninteresting and, I dare say, boring. But the architect, Mr. Pettit, has done a great job of putting in articulations along here and using a lot of different materials. They are going above the 35 feet height requirement, but only for parapet walls and to create articulation that will also serve as screening for rooftop equipment. So anything that you see that goes above 35 feet is really just a parapet wall of different heights or a faux chimney, which are just architectural features. They're using arched roofs, tile roofing, decorative cornices. They have scalloped overhangs. Like I said, the faux chimneys. And so a lot of wonderful elements from the Spanish colonial revival style. And then the architect did not spare the backside of the building, which will be visible from Lewis Road and also from the railroad tracks. With the screening that's going to be going in along the railroad, you won't actually be able to see the tuck under parking, and you'll just be able to see the top of the building, which also the architect has put in a lot of architectural details along this so that it makes it look like it's a lot of little smaller individual buildings rather than one giant building. And then this is from the south side, looking from the railroad, looking to the north. This is what the building would look like from that direction. So really, as you're pulling on Lewis, this is kind of the view you're going to be seeing. And then a cross section of the property. It's got a 14-foot distance between the grade here and where the tuck under parking begins. So the vehicles will be able to drive their RVs under this eave and into the building. and then there'll be garage doors that come down, and then on the second and third floor is where the parking will be, and then you can see that the parapet wall extends above that 35 feet, but it's really just hiding rooftop equipment and providing architectural details. And then the same kind of architectural details are on the front of the building. And then the face of the building is here, and the property line is here, and that's the 15-foot setback. And that is going to be the setback that's going to be able to provide the landscaping area here and the trees that are going to be along the Dawson Drive area, so that this whole Dawson Drive streetscape is going to become a much nicer looking and more convenient and accessible space. Bicycle lanes on both sides, parking still on the east side, 2 travel lanes, and a turning lane in the middle. And that's how the design concept is for the Dawson Drive area. So the the staff is recommending adoption of a resolution approving IPD 406, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. The actions of the Planning Commission is final unless an appeal is filed within 10 days of the date of this action. And with that, my presentation is over. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for that very thorough and comprehensive presentation. Commissioners, of questions for staff? Mr. Thomas.
None right now. I may come up with something.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, a couple things. There was some discussion in the staff report about that 15-foot landscaping and how on the previous application, which had public benefit, the city would have participated in the cost of that landscaping. This is the frontage along Dawson. I just wanted to confirm that because the applicant had questions about that there are no further questions about that the applicant is accepting that this is not a public benefit project and that they will be footing the bill for that landscaping. I just wanted to make sure that was the end result there.
I believe that question, I would like to let the applicant answer that question.
Okay.
That is our understanding, yes.
Okay, great. Looking at the engineering site plan, I had a question about the drainage detention. It's a rather large facility, and my understanding is it hasn't been completely worked out yet on the details, but it's something like 107 feet long by 20 feet wide, or 14 feet wide and 4 foot deep. Is that facility, has there been at least a preliminary hydrology and hydraulic review that
Are you
produced?
talking about the Ventura County drain that goes through the property?
No, I'm talking about a detention tank, a storm drain detention tank.
Yeah, we're not at that phase of the project yet. Right now, this is just preliminary. So that is going to be something that's going to be worked out in the engineering phase as to how they're actually going to end up doing the retention on the property.
Okay, so then that's just completely preliminary at this point.
It is.
All right.
Vice Chairman?
I think my questions are for the property owner or developer.
Okay, great. Okay. I want to ask,
Tally Tucker, City Engineer.
Oh,
I do
yes.
want to answer Mr. Commissioner Murphy's question. There was a preliminary calculation for all the BMPs as well as the detention, as well as the dry well. So we are at a conceptual preliminary, but there were calculations. It wasn't just a box drawn on the plan.
All right, more than a dartboard at this point. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the one, I think, main question I have for the project, I mean, I really appreciated all the work that went into trying to come up with a concept design to fit that piece of property and the configuration it's in. But I have I'm glad, setbacks, yes, this is a perfect table I wanted to refer to. So the setbacks, I want to know how we square the minimum rear yard setback to, there's a condition in the list of conditions number 97 that I want to see if you might be able to look at that. And I want to see how that squares with the setbacks shown on this table here. Because I do have a concern about the rear yard setback.
Just give me a moment, I need to pull up the conditions, please. Thank you. Okay, so what has happened here is with the fire department, with the consultation with the fire department, what they have done is they have gone ahead and said that because this is within 15 feet of Dawson Drive, that the aerial fire access will actually be from Dawson Drive. It won't be necessary to be from the rear yard, or from the rear of the building.
Okay, so you have one side of the building access to meet that area requirement, but does it not say that if it's over 30 feet, that requires that sort of access?
But only on one side of the building, not on both sides of the building.
Okay, so that's, I'm sorry, the square footage of the building, so which is saying 50,000 square feet, but we're talking about a 64,000 square foot building here?
Right. So yes, this building being 3 stories and 35 feet, it would require aerial access, and it needs a 30-foot drive, but the fire department has said that they will be able to take that access off of Dawson Drive. So they would pull up to the curb on Dawson Drive, and that's where they would be able to access the building, to the roof of the building.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that they were going to move or actually go underground with the electrical, so that those
Yeah, and that was
high-voltage
also
lines
one of
would
the,
be
that was one of the major requirements of being able to take that access from Dawson Drive,
Right.
is then the power lines won't be in the way, so you won't have any conflict with the aerial access and the power lines.
But like I said, looking at where it says buildings exceeding 50,000 square foot require an access route along a minimum of 2 sides. Is that,
Yeah, so they have the access route, just not an aerial access route. So they have access all the way around the building, but they only need aerial access from one side of the building.
so you're saying it doesn't need to be 30 feet as it's saying here in the condition?
No, it does
For,
not.
for that height of a building?
It does not, because the reason they need the 30 feet is so that they have the ability to deploy the ladder truck.
Right?
So that it needs to be far enough back from the building. And so they would deploy the ladder truck from Dawson Drive. They wouldn't pull it into the drive aisle. But the drive aisle, I can actually move down to, back it up one. If you see, there is here, there is more than 30 feet from the property line to the facade of the building. And so this space here is considered to be the access aisle that's 30 feet because it's under the building partially. So you have a distance here of over 32 feet. And so that's the fire access. But then the aerial access is taken from Dawson Drive, and they'll be able to access the roof from Dawson Drive.
Because there will be parking back there as well. So what you really have realistically is 18 feet of clear driveway width.
Which is enough
Right, 'cause you have
room,
5 feet
per the fire department, that is enough room for them to drive their trucks down and be able to access the back of the building.
Okay. And the stair access is from the rear of the building, is that correct?
Correct.
So they would probably be using those to go in the interior of the building if they needed to.
Yes.
And so I just, worry about the fact that it's compressed and they're, don't have a lot of room. If somebody's out there and they're not parking where they should be parking, if they're parking right next to the doorway that leads to the elevator, the stairwell, that it's, going to be a problem because of the limited amount of setback that we really have there to work with.
Yeah, I definitely understand. The process of this process review or project review is that we send every single submittal to the fire department for their comments. The comments come back from the fire department and the applicant adjusts to those comments. So the fire department has seen this submittal or seen this project about 5 different times, and at the end they said, we feel this project is complete, and with the conditions of approval that we've provided, which are the ones that are before you today, we feel as though this project is adequately going to be able to be served by the fire department.
Okay, so they've seen everything in detail, see the setbacks, see the limitations,
They've
the
seen the project
potential.
since day one,
and
all the
yet
way through to the
okay.
very end.
And it meets the condition that they put in here, 97.
It does.
Okay, okay. Then that's all the questions I have. Oh, we have one more question for,
I came up with some
Staff?
questions. Paul, thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely.
I don't know if these questions can be answered at this point or if the applicant should answer them, but I'll ask them anyway. What climate control is there in the storage area of the units? Are they air-conditioned or dehumidified or what?
I'll leave that to the applicant.
Okay. What is the ceiling height on the second and third floors? Is it a standard 8 feet?
Let me
I see a nod that yes, it probably is. So the storage container is 8 feet high, whatever container, the room, whatever it is 8 feet high with a door. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any, while the exterior architecture shows a number of things that look like windows, fenestration and whatnot, is there any natural light that gets in on the second and third floors? Or is it all artificial light?
I'll leave it. I think that the architect would be the best person to answer that as well.
Yeah, that's fine. This project, we were told in the very beginning, has had a long history of proposed development. Is there any indication or have any tests been done to determine whether or not hazardous materials were disposed on the site from previous users or anything like that? Have soil samples been taken? Other tests been made? Do we know that?
Yeah, there was a phase 1 study done on the property.
When was that?
It was prior to the the subdivision map being done, so prior to 2017. I don't have the exact date.
Okay. So it's somewhat current. Okay. And then sort of a related question regarding fenestration. The elevations over here show a very nice facade on the front. But in the presentation, we were told that the RV could park in the front and then kind of back into the space or come in from the back to the front. Are there doors on the front side facing Dawson?
No,
Or is that a solid wall?
Yeah, no, so I think that you misunderstood. So in this particular section here, the building this is the rear of the building that's being shown.
Yeah.
And this is the front of the building. They're just not showing the middle to save
Right.
space on paper. But the building, the vehicles would only be able to enter through
Okay.
here and exit through here.
I see.
So there are no
So it's just a
doors
solid
There
wall.
are no doors on the front of the building.
Okay, all right. So an RV, whatever it may be, needs to back out to get out of, can't
Right.
go straight through. Okay.
Yeah, and if you look at the layout of the property, all the parking spaces are angled to allow the backing out to be easier, and they'll have plenty of room to be able to do a back out.
Yeah, I see the
at
little
these
triangles on there representing
Right.
some sort of vehicle. I get that. I just wasn't sure if there were any doors on the front. Okay. Is there any, are there any windows in that front wall? Or is that a big dark box?
The windows that are in the front wall are mainly serving the commercial property, so yes, there are some
So
windows.
the parking stalls are going to be dark, and you just flip a switch and turn on a light?
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's all I have
But
for
the
now.
parking stalls do also have garage doors on them as well. So you can't get into the garages once the garage doors are closed.
Okay.
I have one additional question as far as the electrical that's going to be put underground. Is that going to occur before the construction begins on the
Yes,
property?
it'll have to be done at the first stage of construction, along with all the other utilities that it'll be going underground.
So during grading or before any sort of combustible construction,
Yes.
that will be done? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we will go ahead and open the public comment period for this agenda item. If the applicant would like to address the commission.
Good evening, Chair, Planning Commission members. My name is Mark Pettit. I'm with Lauterbach and Associates Architects, and I'm a resident of Camarillo. And I've been working on this project for a little over 8 years. And we're excited to be here tonight, believe me. And I'd like to also thank staff, Paul and Dave and all the other staff here that really have helped us through a lot of discussion on many, many, many points. So, as was mentioned earlier, our project is located on railroad property. That's why it is very narrow and very long. There were multiple parcels that were added together. There were a lot of buildings that have been removed to date and some other buildings which will be removed in the future. So we designed the building to take a look at and include potential for some office, some retail, maybe even a small microbrewery tasting room. That's why we have the outside patio. So we really are trying to take a look at this to have a lot of different things happen as much as we can up at the front of the building. So you will have windows and access into that front landscape area. Our goal is to make it look like a little bit of a village, as was mentioned earlier, with different components, different parts of the building, and really try to activate which will be a new sidewalk on Dawson Drive, and take advantage of all the new development over in that area of town. Our architecture is not cookie cutter, it's not repetitious, it's not the same color, it's not the same materials, it's not the same storage building look that you see throughout Ventura County. We really wanted to do something a little bit above and beyond, a little bit something special, and not what you see elsewhere in the city. We do meet the heritage design requirements. The property is secure. We have plenty of parking. The landscape will be drought tolerant. And along the back of the building, as was mentioned, we have the same decorative columns and rail with the green screen. So we're really trying to make the experience as people come in on the train to kind of see a nice experience, since it is across from the railroad station. Our building is designed to meet green building code standards and very energy efficient. And when the time it's finished, it'll be very close to a LEED silver rated building, very energy efficient. As mentioned, drought tolerant landscaping. And the water use for the building is very minimal. In fact, it's very, very consistent with the plumbing that was in the buildings that were torn down. So we really took that to heart and aren't really increasing the water use at all. The site is perfect for this use and not for many other uses. We looked at this for all sorts of things fitting in with the specific plan, and we kept coming back to this use. It's long, it's narrow, and the building is not very wide. That's why the building site, among other things, has been vacant for so long, because there really hasn't been a use that makes sense there. So we're excited to get this going on to the next phase and hope that you will support it. I did want to answer, if I could, a couple of the questions. As far as the fire department, we've met, I'm guessing, a dozen times with the fire department, with at least 3 or 4 people at the fire department. And as was mentioned earlier, the aerial truck on Dawson, but we do have access as you pull in on the side where the office is. A fire truck can pull in there. And because our building is completely sprinklered, we have a hose distance so that people can access fire hydrants or fire trucks all around the building without even really going to the back, but we have designed it also that they can go in through the back. And because the building is not very deep, if, heaven forbid, there is a fire with an aerial truck, it's very easily accessed by the one side. As far as access through stairs and emergency purposes, all of our stairs are going to be rated for exiting. And we do have some stairs that do access along the front on Dawson. But from a security point of view, we wanted to keep all of the access off of the back. This will be a secure, gated camera, state-of-the-art secured building. As far as climate control, we are planning on conditioning the building. And in addition to that, one of the things that we're proposing would be a wine-cooled storage area on the ground floor, something that we have seen in other communities, and really we don't have too much of that here in Camarillo, so we thought that would be something that could be a benefit and could be of need. All of our parking spaces are away from access, from stair exits, from elevators. So nobody will be blocking that, and all of the back part will have red painted curbs, so there'll be no parking up against the building. As far as the fenestration, there will be a lot of glass in that corner where our office is, and all along a fairly good length where our patio is, that access for future office or other use. So that'll be all glass. The rest of the fenestration is going to be spandrel glass. And we've designed the building to look like a series of two-story buildings, even though it is 3 stories. So you'll see the windows there's just a second floor window. It's not 3 stories of windows. Hazardous materials, Paul was correct. We did do a study on that. There were nothing there at all that was of note. And we will have RV access doors or other types of doors along the back, so that'll be additional screening and security. And I think I answered most questions, so thank you very much.
Any questions? Vice Chair Benjamin.
Okay. It's going to be sprinklered for the building, so is every separate space going to be sprinkled by itself?
They have to be.
Okay.
So the way that it's set up is the units are typically 8 feet. They have a mesh screen on top of them so that people don't hang clothes hangers on top of a fire sprinkler. So there is that kind of screen so that water can come down if there is a problem, and it's serviced that way. So from that drop-down screen ceiling, lights will be above that,
Okay.
and then sprinklers, and then the structure. So
Okay.
we try to make it as tight as we can.
Okay. I kind of was assuming they would each be, but I just wanted to ask to make sure that was verified. On the larger parking areas that you call the tandem areas, those would still be rented to one occupant, not divided up to 2 different occupants?
Because there's an access for each, there's an overhead door for one space. We just showed from a scale point of view, so 2 cars can go in there, or an RV, or a car and a trailer, or a boat, or whatever. So we tried to kind of give you the idea of how that's going to be set up.
When I was looking at the numbering, though, it looked like the back closest to the parking lot was like one number and then a different number for the front
Correct.
area. And I couldn't see how you could lease that to 2 different owners without one vehicle being in the way of another vehicle. So I just wanted to verify that they might be 2 different numbers on what I was looking at on the blueprint. The longer ones are still one space.
Correct.
Okay. And I guess one of my concerns with looking at the commercial part of it, as far as where you've got the commercial and then the patio on the front, but the parking for that is an awkward place to park and then walk around to that commercial. Can they walk through the building, or?
Yes. We have 2 locations or 2 access points from the front and from the actual from the office area, and then from right around the corner is the other access, where the parking would be. You could park there and walk directly right in, just like any retail shopping center.
Okay. And around that patio, will you have large enough plants that will grow up high enough to offset some of the fumes and smell from Dawson? From the vehicles on Dawson?
We haven't really thought about that yet, but there will be plantings, and we are looking at least a 4-foot or whatever the requirements would be for that wall
Is it,
fencing.
I'm thinking of places where I've sat outside at some of the restaurants along the freeway, and you sit outside and it's noisy, and you get the fumes from the freeway. And you may have to maybe give some consideration even to put a planted screen in front or something like that to kind of block some of that if you really want people to sit out there and enjoy.
We're open to all those recommendations. As long as it fits in with the code, we're
Okay.
open to.
Yeah, code, I don't know. That's up to, it's up to these guys. Is the fence in the back of the property by the railroad tracks going to be done in such a way that people aren't going to be climbing over it to get in to the parking area?
Yes, it's a standard type fencing that you see all along that area, and it seems to work pretty well. We haven't really had any problems with it on other facilities in the area.
Okay, because I only used a storage facility one time for about a year, but going around as a single person and parking in the back and stuff, I didn't like going there at night. It was just, even though it was a safe place, it was a little scary. And this is very narrow and close to the railroad tracks and stuff where if anybody wanted to climb over the fence, they probably wouldn't be seen.
Yeah, the fencing that is called out in the plans is actually advertised as being a no-climb fence because
Okay.
it's got very narrow slats in it that are kind of tall, so that it really makes it to where there's nowhere to get hand or foothold into the actual fence where you'd be able to lift yourself up and over the fence. So it's advertised as a no-climb kind of fence.
Okay, yeah. I mean, overall, I'm kind of surprised to see another storage building going in, because we've had so many storage buildings. We've got one large one that's still under construction. But what you have to offer for the vehicle parking and the RV parking and stuff, we don't have enough of. So that's kind of a plus in this one, in that I know that's lacking, in other storage areas or, in through Camarillo as a whole. So,
As homes get smaller and smaller and less garages and less storage areas, there's a huge need. I think Charles will talk a little bit about that need when he's up to speak.
well, like I say, I did have to take advantage of one for a while when I moved out here while I was kind of living under construction and needed to have my place empty, so. But now everything is back there. But yeah, I just, like I say, I was a little surprised that we have enough need for another storage area. But I am glad to see the RV parking and that it'll be enclosed and covered and, protected, not just out in a parking lot. So that is a huge benefit, I think, for the city. And I think that is, I get the concept, but the term tuck under parking just means something enclosed underneath, or is there a
Means that
special?
there's a floor or two above it, so you're
Okay.
tucking underneath the building above.
And this tuck under parking, I didn't see anything about excavating down lower, it's still at ground level.
It's all ground level.
Okay. I think that is all of my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Over this side, Commissioner Telovich?
Yes, one question, well, maybe two. Do you know yet what your structure is going to be on this? What I mean is, are you going to have to drive pile, or are you going to have a spread footing?
Based on the preliminary soils, we'll probably have some grade beams
Okay,
and a thickened slab, like a mat foundation is what we're thinking of.
oh, okay.
And it'll probably be a steel superstructure.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's good.
Commissioner Murphy, did you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, it may be for Mark or it may be for the owner. We talked a little bit about that landscaping easement, the frontage landscaping easement, and whether there was full agreement with what would start as condition 1, that the owner would be responsible for owning and constructing and maintaining the landscaping and landscaping improvements in that frontage easement. Wanted to confirm that.
We've reviewed the conditions and are accepting the conditions, and Charles might have some comments on that. But from an architectural point of view, we understand the conditions for the landscape.
Okay, that's great. The other thing I had is we talked a little bit before about this detention structure. Those things work really well when they're maintained and not well at all when they're not maintained. And so I will be motioning to add some verbiage to the conditions, particularly the condition that has to do with cleaning out the storm drains at least 2 times a year, once in just before the rain season, and I think once in January, and also as required by the city engineer. I'd like to add that detention facility to the conditions. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or if you have any concerns about it.
I kind of thought that was already in the BMPs.
It's in the BMPs for the stormwater component, for the stormwater quality component, but there's 2 pieces to it. It's the stormwater, the filter, but there's also the detention tank and the inflow and outflow pipes that go along with that.
It's not an unusual condition. We see that in a lot of our projects and a lot of our storage buildings that we do, so it's not an unusual condition.
All right, thank you.
I wanted to ask, you spoke to the fire department quite a bit. Did they, and I know the building's going to be fully sprinklered throughout. Did they require you or ask, not necessarily require, but ask whether standpipes, because it's a 600-foot long building?
Oh, we will absolutely have those throughout the building, most likely at our stair locations.
Okay, good. Thank you. And do any of the stairs go up to the roof?
We have roof access. We don't have stairs up to the roof. We have a stair access.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other representative want to address the commission at this time?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Charles Sandlin. I've been working on this project with my family over here at Des and Sioux since actually 2008. That's when we first contacted the railroad to look. We saw this blighted area. I've grown up in Camarillo my whole life, and this area has been in need of development, I would say, for the last 40 years. And it's been sitting vacant there. One of the key things I'd like to also express is we will be removing the only billboard left in Camarillo. It's a huge plus and win for the city. They've wanted that for a long time, and this project accomplishes that. In regards to the landscape, we were part of the process in 2010 when the city developed the Dawson Drive guidelines and concepts and got the stakeholders, the community, the property owners, and the business owners in the area to see what can we do to really enhance the area that was in serious need and still is in need of enhancement, urban renewal. We met with Bob Burrow at the time. That's how long ago this project started, at the Camarillo City Library, and we're part of the focus groups there to help develop the Dawson Drive guidelines. And through that came the city recognized that it wasn't feasible just because of the regular shape of the properties, that they would provide assistance with the offsites of the property or anything else that they could through the redevelopment agency, and actually through city funds too as well at the time, subsequent conversations that we had when the redevelopment agency went away. And we had done many feasibility studies on this property to find out what is feasible. I've probably had, just with Dave Moe, since he's been there the past 7 years, probably at least 30 conversations with him. What we threw up all kinds of different ideas of what's feasible. Then we'd run feasibility studies on those and see what we can come up with. And this facility really is the only feasible solution. We had Cushing in Wakefield recently do a feasibility study on this property and on self-storage in the city of Camarillo alone. And they said even with the new developments of the new self-storage that's coming in, that self-storage in the city of Camarillo isn't adequate to serve the needs of the homes in the community. And so their study said that this facility the storage area in the facility would fill up within less than a year, which is, usually it's a 2 to 3 year period, even with the new development, that this thing should be filled up within a year. And they really like the project too as well. But as far as the landscape, I wanted to comment on that. The reason we had originally, through the Dawson Drive guidelines and concepts, the landscaping, the sidewalks, even the power lines, the streets, the public infrastructure outside the property was going to be handled by the redevelopment agency, and then subsequently it was going to be handled by the city. The city was going to do the sidewalks and do all that. And so the landscape was very minimal, we feel, as far as monetary cost, that we accept that. And we've also accepted the other costs as well that the city was going to assume as part of this project. As we've gone through this since 2008 to today, that's something that we now understand that we are fully taking responsibility for.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, thank you for being here.
My
Thank you for
pleasure.
your comments.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate that. I think we have a couple other
Thank you.
speakers from the other owners.
Can you state your name?
My name is Desmond Sandlin. Thank you, Commissioners. I just want to thank you for moving this forward for us. And I just want to tell you, the happiest guy, he's not with us today, is Stan Daly, looking down upon us saying, finally got it done, Des. You finally getting cleaned up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. And do we have any other representatives who?
Hello.
How do you state your name?
Sue Sandlin, and I'm part owner of the property, and looking forward to this development, and I just thank you for your consideration in this development that we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, before I get to these speaker cards here, I want to see if I can get a architectural committee report.
You want that report before we get
Yeah,
public?
so that the public can hear that before we move on. with
The
comments.
Architectural Committee met before this meeting, and we reviewed the elevations as shown behind me, and we felt the building was very consistent with the design guidelines for the area, and that we were impressed that for a very long, skinny building, the architect has done an excellent job of breaking it up in terms of, well, not so much the fenestration. It looks like fenestration, but it's not. Anyway, the in and out of the various planes of the building really break it up so it's not a large, overbearing kind of building. It actually is quite attractive. And we asked about the landscaping, and we're satisfied that we're going to have a fine project. So the recommendation from the Architectural Review Committee was approval.
Very good. Thank you very much for that report. And if I read off names I've already forgotten that have already spoken to us as far as representatives go, my apologies. First card I have here is Mark Pettit, and already done. And Desmond Sandlin, already done. Charles Sandlin, already. And Samaj Sandlin. Okay. So next speaker would be Rob Ashbaugh.
How you guys doing tonight?
Very good. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm a homeowner on Magnolia Street. We have been inundated with high-rise all around our housing development in that area. It's one of the oldest developments in Camarillo. We sit in our living room now and we look up and we have people 3 stories up looking down into our neighborhood, into our living room. We have no privacy anymore. We used to have a really nice neighborhood with views of the mountains and stuff, and I understand we don't own the views, but we don't have the right to have people looking into our houses, and that's what we have now. With this new proposal that's going on, I see that it's kind of an invasive of the weather coming in, the airflow, keeping the pollution out of our little neighborhood, which we were already blocked in by the freeway, and by 4-story buildings already. You guys call it 3 stories, but you add the roof on it, it's another stories. 35 feet is a pretty tall building. We also have Amazon that just moved in, that probably 200 vehicles a day coming out of that. Try to pull out on Magnolia Street, on the Dawson, is very hard. Sometimes I've almost been hit twice in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's very dangerous. You're putting all of our lives in danger by putting these buildings in, because people's going southbound down Dawson. They're already hitting 45, 50 miles an hour, and that's luckily if it's that speed. We're coming out from a dead stop, and we're in trouble. And first time someone gets killed, whose hand is that life is on? I mean, you guys got to consider the neighbors. And I don't think this is considering the neighbors. You want to put a brewery is one of the comments you guys said. I mean, now we're going to have drunk drivers in the neighborhood with kids. And one of the main cutoffs to go out onto the freeway is Magnolia Street and Pettit. And we have kids playing out there. Think of those kids. If it was one of yours, would you want a brewery? Would you want somebody out there drinking and driving and cutting through your neighborhood? I don't think so. I don't think any amount of money is worth any life, period. And you guys really need to focus on that. What you're doing to that little neighborhood. I mean, so far you put, almost 500 apartments in.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ashbaugh. Appreciate your comments. Next speaker we have is Stephen Cooney.
Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, thank you very much. I also live in the small community, Pettit Street. My name's Stephen Cooney, and I feel a bit like David asking Goliath to make a change, but similar to what the other gentleman had mentioned, one of the things that we love so much about Camarillo is the feeling of openness that you get, even when you go to the website for Camarillo. There are all sorts of aerial views that show all, the beautiful library that we have, the incredible amenities that we have. There's also the incredible iconic church that we have. It's just such an amazing sense of community here and openness and kind of relaxation. One of the things when we moved into that neighborhood, we've been living there now for almost 20 years in this small neighborhood, been living in town just about my whole life off and on, is like, again, the other gentleman I mentioned, we had amazing mountain views, and that's kind of one of the things also within Camarillo. Almost anywhere within the town, you have incredible views of the hills or the iconic church. And when the apartments went in, the 3-story apartments went in, or 3+ story apartments went in, that went away. When we were going to sell our house, at one point we had considered selling. We're not at this point. But one of the things that we had was the mountain views from our front yard. And the other thing that we had is the amazing church that we can see at nighttime. At Christmas time, you see it lit up with the green and the red. It's amazing. And that's where we go when we have, parties and everything else with our family and friends, and we sit back and see the church. The concern that I have is again, kind of with the height more than anything else. I recognize the amount of hours and planning that went in to put this together, and the detail and efforts to make it as nice, as you could for, again, for storage facilities and everything. And it's fantastic that there's going to be retail and a potential for restaurants or other things. When we heard about the fact that the city was going to do a revitalization, that was one of the things that we were very excited about. The fact that there might be some retail, some, restaurants or other things that were going in. And then we heard it was going to be a 3-story, 67,000-foot storage facility, which is going to be like number 17 on the list of storage facilities. Again, the design is beautiful, and everything associated with all the other amenities is fantastic. But the one thing that I would ask is please keep in mind the height, because it really will. The neighborhood is already starting to feel more and more boxed in with the apartments that are behind us and all around us. My concern is that this is going to be yet one more wall that goes up, kind of blocking our views. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Heather White.
Hello, my name is Heather White, and I am for this beautiful building. It actually allows for widening of that road, and I've actually ridden my bike down this road many times, and I haven't ever felt threatened by a vehicle speeding by me. And I think that the building itself brings a lot of beauty to the neighborhood, and I think it would bring a sense of community too, with retail and possible office space. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. That's all the speaker cards I have, and I had two comments. One of the speakers actually was here in attendance and spoke publicly, and the other one was from Patrick McCarthy, and that speaker was opposed, expressing concerns of the project, but we'll enter that into the record as well. And anybody else from the public want to speak on this project? Okay. You can come forward.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
My name is
Lisa McCarthy. I live in the neighborhood. I've lived in the neighborhood for 33 years with Rob and Mr. Cooney. Our concerns are the height of the building. Not the fact that you want to build a facility there. We appreciate that. It's a dirty, empty lot. But a 3-story is too high. The first 3-story building to come in was the hotel. You took away our view of the grade. We no longer see the sunrise. We no longer see the moonrise. You put in 3-story apartments behind us. Now we have people looking in our backyards, and we do not have a view of the mountains anymore. If you put in a 3-story building on Dawson Drive, I'm very nervous, excuse me. Are we going to lose our view of the chapel now too? That's our last thing. And 3 stories all around us, again, the breeze, the sense of freedom, the view, the openness, that's all going to be taken away from us. Our little neighborhood gets kicked around a lot. We require almost no city services. It's a very safe neighborhood. The police do not respond to calls in our neighborhood because we don't have them. Our neighborhood is a sense of community. We're all very tight. We're all very close. We don't ask for a lot, but please don't take this last thing away from us. Give us a 2-story building. Can you just do a 2-story building, please? That's all we're asking for, not to go 3 stories. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else want to speak to the commission on this item? And there's no more speaker cards? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public comment period for this item. And I'll turn to my fellow commissioners to get their comments. Oh, do we have? Okay. My apologies. Okay. Okay.
With the building size, the height, if you look at what's behind the building, it's the bridge, and it's a big concrete wall that supports the big overhanging bridge, and the building's the same height as that right there right now. I just wanted to make that clarification point if you look behind the building. Maybe one of the pictures had that too as well. You could probably refer back to as well. That concrete structure right there is what's the height of the building over there. So instead of looking at that, they would look at this beautiful, the building that we've got there. So I just want to reiterate that to the commission.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And any additional? Okay. We close that period, and I need to turn to my fellow commissioners on comments on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate, first off, the fact that a number of people have come out tonight to tell us their feelings about the project. And it's good to hear from the neighborhood. What often happens is we don't hear anything from the neighborhood. And it's great that you did come out and express your opinions on this. I've looked at the project, and being on the architectural review side, the committee, from a standpoint of the architecture of the building, I was very impressed with the work that was done by the design team. And I think the intent of the owner to provide this kind of a facility makes a lot of sense. The storage facility is sorely needed. I know in my own neighborhood, there's a lot of people that park 2 cars in the garage because they can't park their cars in a 2-car garage because it's all full of stuff. But anyway, you need to put stuff somewhere, and that somewhere is a place like this. So this meets a very particular need, and I think the site actually presented some significant problems in terms of its long, skinny nature, and for the architect and design team to come up with a good solution, I think they've done that. Regarding the height of the building, I appreciated the last comment that as you look at this particular picture, the height of, that's actually Lewis Road coming over from, further to the north, and that the height of this building would not be much higher than the concrete that you see in that bridge. So I'm as less concerned about the height as others. I know that to the south and to the east of the residential area, there have been a number of hotel complexes that have gone in that are 3, 4, or even 5 stories. And I certainly share the concern that the citizens have expressed in that regard. But I don't feel that this particular project is obtrusive in any nature. And I think on a very positive side, it's a definite plus in terms of the urban design of the community. It's taking a, well, frankly, kind of a disastrous area. It's gone for many, many, many years with no use or minimal use, and changed uses and a number of other things. So I think that this represents a fresh start to improve the overall corridor along Dawson Drive. We have another project that was approved, well, a year and a half or so ago, that's further down Dawson Drive and actually past Lewis, but on the left, that gets rid of a kind of an ugly lot also. So overall, I hear the concerns and I understand what you're saying, but I feel that the benefits of this project in terms of the urban design, in terms of the positive aspect that it provides to the community is very important. So I am supportive of the project.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the comments from Lisa, Rob, and Steve as well. I believe this project is a neighborhood, will have the overall impact of beautifying this corridor, but I don't want to downplay their comments about the visual impact of this project. It may be only as tall as that wall, but the fact is the building will be closer to the neighborhood. So there will be a visual impact, and what they will be looking at is this well designed architectural building instead of, and I believe you said there is undergrounding of the electrical, and there's landscaping improvements. It will be a much better looking site at some expense to the visual, what the local neighborhood can see while walking along the streets and so forth. And so I do appreciate their comments. Now, what the project involves is finally putting something, a use that is needed in the city and well-designed, that is finally puts some use to this very, very difficult strip of land. And I appreciate that, and it'd be difficult for me not to support a project like this that is so well planned out. Again, at the regret of the comments that were made by Lisa and Rob and Steve earlier. So I will support this project. I'd like to make a motion to amend the conditions, and I'm not sure when I'm supposed to do that, Mr. Director.
During the motion?
During the motion?
Yeah, after all the commissioners have spoken, if they wish to speak, and a motion is made, that's when you'd request an amendment.
All right, thank you.
After the reading of the resolution? You mean after the reading of the resolution, you're talking about the motion then? For moving for the resolution, you're saying?
When you make the motion to, make the motion to approve or whatever your action is going to be.
At that point, okay. Vice Chair Vandermeer.
Thank you. Looking at this project, I mean, at first I did have questions about more storage space. That's been answered. And I do like the fact that it has the parking for vehicles and motorhomes and different types of stuff that we don't have here. But I also hear the concerns about views and height and such. So I'm in favor of the project, but I do have two concerns, and I don't know if there's any way to look at the heights of the parapets and reduce them a couple feet all along, make it at least a couple feet shorter. You've got a lot of height that's going up and down. It's visually appealing, nice to look at, but also a lot of extra height there. And I don't know if it's all needed to hide parts of things on the roof or not. But if that could be, just kind of look at it and see. And then the other concern I had with this area is something not related to this project necessarily, but the intersection of Pettit. I'm not familiar with driving out of Magnolia, but I know I've come out of Pettit to turn left onto Dawson. And I've had trouble almost every time I've tried to turn left because pedestrians coming across and vehicles going, and it gets really kind of confusing as to whether you can turn or not. So if staff could at least put that down on something to look at for consideration later, these intersections that are coming out and turning left onto Dawson, to make sure that we make that as safe as possible. So But as far as the project itself in total, I would have to say, I agree with that. So I'm just a little torn in between the view and the height type items. So if there's any way that we could ease that a little bit. But that's not going to keep me from voting for it. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much for comments. I very much want to see this area developed, and I think that the project brought forward to us is something that a lot of work has gone into to really enhance and make it very aesthetically appealing. Of course, I've still have reservations and concerns about the height and the access. In spite of my questions I asked earlier and the answers, which I appreciated, and I do appreciate that those matters and issues were visited extensively. But I'm quite certain that that access roadway will be used considerably. I appreciate the access of Dawson Drive, the width of Dawson Drive, the aerial capability of being set up on Dawson Drive to access the roof or set up water towers, whatever the case may be. But I know that fire apparatus will be using that and going on site to get off the street, for alarm ringing calls, for any other type of emergencies that might come up on the site. And they will use that access roadway, and I want to make sure it's always clear. I'm worried about the parking that is set up to be provided in the rear of the lot there, the rear of the building. So I don't know if that's going to be an issue in the future, and I have a real struggle with that. Thinking that this building, while it's they've done a great job given the space they have to work with, but it's a lot and it's ambitious and it is a limited area that's causing just a little bit of a compromise in terms of what could be ideal. If it was 2 stories, that might lessen the risk. If there was a greater setback in the rear, that would probably improve the overall access, but we have what we have. But like I say, I think I very much want to see this area developed, and hope that at some point, we might be able to look and address what the options are if they feel that they need a red curb or extend that clearance to the rear of the property from 18 feet to the 27 feet, for example. If it becomes a real problem, if they can't get through, if there's continual loading, offloading, and not maintaining that fire lane in the back, because it will get used. I really believe that. But having said that, if we want to go ahead and call for.
Can I add one more comment?
Sure.
Okay. I also wanted to say that in looking at the plans for all the spaces in the units, and I haven't looked at storage sizes for several years, but I was very impressed with the variety of sizes here, from very small to the larger sizes throughout. So it's going to offer a lot of different uses for people, as what they need. But I did enjoy seeing so many different sizes, down from 4x4, 4x5, I think was the smallest, on up to bigger ones. So I did want to give recognition to that part of the plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that's all. I appreciate the work that went into this, very much so. And now if we'll call for resolution reading.
Resolution number PC 2022-12, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo approving an industrial plan development permit for a 3-story, 64,743 square foot self-storage facility with tuck-under parking in the SC zone, further described and set forth as IPD 406.
I'd like to waive further reading and move to adopt with the following amendment, and that is to condition number 47, which states, the first sentence is, all on-site storm drains must be cleaned at least twice a year, once immediately before October 1st, the beginning of the rain season, and once in January. I would like that to be amended to all on-site storm drains, including the drainage detention system and associated inlet-outlet piping, comma, must be cleaned at least twice a year, once immediately before October 1st, the beginning of the rain season, and once in January.
Okay, so we have a motion with amendment language to add condition 47. Did we capture all that? Do we need? Okay. So we have a motion with amendment to condition 47 to incorporate language as stated by Commissioner Murphy. And do we have?
Do you have it first, or you need a second?
I'll
I
second.
need a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded with amendment to condition language. Okay, so everybody vote on the project. Okay, it passes 4-0-1. Abstention. Now we can see if Commissioner Edsel is still with us. Okay. So that concludes our public hearing items, and we'll move on to Director's Report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Espinoza. I just have a few items here regarding our upcoming meetings. We currently do not have any items scheduled for our September 6th meeting. It's right after Labor Day weekend, and so that meeting may be canceled. But we do have items scheduled for the next two meetings, regular meetings of the Planning Commission, which are September 20th and October 4th.
I'm sorry, I didn't pick that up.
Yeah.
Are we, you were talking about future meetings?
Yes, we do have items scheduled for the two meetings after September 6th, which are the regular meetings of the Planning Commission on September 20th and October 4th.
Okay.
We do have items for those.
9/20, and then, what would it be, 10?
10/4.
10/4. And so the meeting on 9/6 is canceled. Or-
Maybe can't, we don't have any items at this time,
Got it.
so.
Okay.
Okay, any further director's comments?
No, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners' comments?
I just have a question. Do we have any other promotions or any great news that you can share with us? I was unaware that Jackie had a promotion.
We do. I don't see it in the. This is behind the podium. No. So we just hired a senior planner to replace Oksana Buck, and his name is James Fowler.
James Fowler?
Fowler, yes. He was a planner in Simi Valley, so he started last week. He was here in the audience. He probably had to go home, but yeah, he just started. So he's getting his feet wet. He's helping with housing and the grants, their CDBG program, and.
So he's a senior planner?
Yes, he's a senior
Okay.
planner. So we have a new staff. We've developed a pretty good team. We're pretty excited, moving forward.
That's good to hear.
Nothing else.
Commissioner Edsel? We missed you.
Got to watch it on TV back there, so that was good. You guys did a good job.
Okay.
Nothing further? All right, with,
I have one more.
Oh,
We
yeah.
also have Elena.
oh, yes.
Thanasco.
Another new,
Need water. She is replacing Monique.
Mhm.
As actually Deborah, yeah, because Deborah was there too, as our management assistant in the community development department. So
Great.
we also have Elena too. Sorry about that.
okay.
Welcome.
Welcome, Elena.
Oh, and there's James.
There's James. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, welcome. Elena?
Elena Thanasco. Elena?
Well, welcome to all the new people. It seems like almost every meeting now, there's been a new planner.
Hopefully it's not us chasing them off and rotating them.
We ran out of people in Moore Park, I guess, so it's Simi Valley now, so that's good.
Thank you very much for the introductions. And with nothing else, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.